June, 1944. Normandy is suffocating under the scent of gunpowder, damp earth, and the sickening stench of rotting straw. This isn't the movie they showed you in Hollywood. This is a meat grinder where every step could be your last. General George S. Patton isn't sitting in a headquarters 30 miles from the front. He is exactly where the air trembles from explosions, where death tastes like scorched metal. In a single heartbeat, the world around him froze. The optical sight of a German Mauser 98K gripped in the hands of a professional killer, locked onto the 3 stars on the general's helmet. The Wehrmacht sniper had already begun to squeeze the trigger. But what happened in the minutes that followed is something you won't find in official history books or Pentagon reports. This wasn't just a skirmish between 2 enemies. It was a head-on collision of 2 polar ideologies, where one was destined to be wiped off the face of the earth. Today, we reveal the finale of this bloody duel, an event that for 80 years they've tried to hide under the stamp of top secret due to its so-called excessive brutality. They tell us war is strategy. Patton knew war was will. And that day in Normandy, his will was tested by a 7.62 caliber bullet. Watch this video until the end, because the final act of this drama will force you to rethink everything you knew about justice on the battlefield. You will witness the moment a general transformed into an executioner, and you'll understand why his enemies feared him more than the entire Allied army. Did Patton go too far that day? Or was this the only language the enemy understood? You decide. Write your opinion in the comments right now, or wait until you hear the conclusion. I'm waiting for your honest answer. This wasn't a fair war fought by the rules of chivalry. This was the degradation of the human spirit, turned into state policy. The German sniper, entrenched in the ruins of an old farmhouse, wasn't just following orders. This was an act of pure scorn. Through his scope, he didn't just see an officer. He saw a symbol of American might, and he wanted to trample that symbol into the dirt. By that point, the Wehrmacht had completely abandoned the last shreds of military honor. They used white flags as bait for medics. They booby-trapped the bodies of their own fallen comrades, knowing young American boys would try to bury them. And this sniper, looking through his crystal-clear Zeiss lens, felt no fear, only arrogance. He didn't just want to kill a general. He wanted to humiliate the entire Third Army with a single shot to the face of old blood and guts. This was a gross violation of every unwritten law of war. The sniper saw clearly. Patton was riding in an open Willys Jeep, not hiding behind armor, not bowing his head. The general believed in his destiny, in a calling he had felt since his perceived past lives on ancient battlefields. To the German marksman, this was weakness, a self-assurance that demanded punishment. To Patton, it was a conscious defiance of the gods of war. The enemy was cowardly. He waited until the Jeep slowed down near a wrecked Panther tank, so the shot would be certain. It was a cold-blooded preparation for an execution. No respect for rank, no fear of retribution. Only the desire to kill and savor a moment of triumph over the American cowboy. Imagine yourself in that Jeep, sitting next to the general. You see a faint flash in a second-story window of a farm 350 yards away. You have a fraction of a second. Your first reaction: dive into the ditch and cover your head, or take this fight while staring death in the eye. Most would choose the first, but Patton was not most. The bullet passed inches from Patton's temple. It didn't just fly by. It tore the Jeep's rearview mirror out by the root and ricocheted off the frame with a metallic ring. Time slowed to the pace of a drop of thick oil sliding down a machine gun barrel. The air hung heavy with the scent of ozone, scorched metal, and the exhaust fumes of an overheating engine. The aides and the driver, obeying the instinct of self-preservation, threw themselves to the ground, seeking safety behind the wheels. But Patton didn't even flinch. Do you hear that sound? It's not the distant thunder of 155mm artillery. It's the sharp, dry creak of his leather gloves as he squeezed the grip of his legendary ivory-handled Colt Peacemaker. His eyes, usually blazing with rage, suddenly turned icy. This was the cold fury that legends were made of. It was the atmosphere before an explosion of supernatural force. The general didn't reach for the radio to call in an airstrike or ask for 82mm mortar support. That would have been too easy, too detached. He didn't want the enemy turned into dust from afar. He wanted to see his eyes. Patton ordered the driver to stop the car in the middle of the open road, directly under fire. His eyes met the dark slit of the window where the killer crouched. The general knew, if he retreated even one step, if he hid in the mud, he would lose this war, not to Hitler, but to himself. He slowly stepped out of the jeep, stood at his full height, and began to move forward. This wasn't bravado. This was psychological terror, aimed at a sniper who couldn't understand. Why isn't this man running? Why is he walking toward death with such certainty? A question for you, the men and women watching this. If you were in the general's boots, knowing that a German optical sight was focusing right on your button, could you walk away from that car with such a straight back, without quickening your pace? Do you consider this heroism, or was it pure madness that shouldn't be emulated? The resolution was as swift as a whip crack and as merciless as nature itself. Patton didn't wait for the infantry to clear the perimeter. He didn't wait for backup. He snatched an M1 Garand semi-automatic rifle from a wounded private lying in the roadside ditch. One movement of the bolt. One moment of truth where there is no room for error. The Wehrmacht sniper, who a minute ago considered himself the ultimate hunter, instantly realized the roles had flipped. Now he was the prey. He tried to fire a second time, but his hands, usually steady as steel, trembled. Patton's bullet found its mark. It passed through the gap between the bricks and struck the German's shoulder, knocking the weapon from his hands. But the general didn't stop there. He approached the ruins of the farm himself, stepping over broken tiles and spent casings. When he reached the second floor and saw the wounded enemy still alive, there wasn't a drop of Christian mercy in his eyes, only a cold, final verdict. The sniper begged for mercy. He invoked the Geneva Convention that his own army had trampled into the mud back in '41. Patton looked down at him. This wasn't just a killing on the battlefield. This was a surgical operation to remove the cancer of Nazism without anesthesia. The general didn't pull the trigger again. He did something worse. He forced the enemy to look death in the eye before handing him over to his soldiers with the order to settle it like men. This moment wasn't captured on newsreel, but the soldiers who were there remembered it for the rest of their lives. It wasn't just, it was just. Patton said words then that were later carefully scrubbed from all memoirs. You came here to kill free men for a tyrant's idea. Now learn to die like rats in someone else's cellar. Do you believe such brutality was justified after everything the Nazis had done to Europe? Why haven't we heard this story before? Official history remembers Patton as a brilliant tank commander, but stays silent on his personal ruthlessness. By July 1945, Patton was too radical for a world preparing for peace. The High Command feared his uncompromising nature would spark immediate conflict with the Soviet Union. Patton saw a threat where others saw allies, openly stating the Red Menace was no better than the Brown one. His cold fury now targeted those he believed would betray freedom for political gain. This sniper incident proved one thing to the bureaucrats. Patton would never compromise with evil. He didn't play diplomacy. He destroyed enemies. That is why his mysterious death in December 1945 still fuels conspiracy theories. Was he too dangerous for a world seeking peace at any price? Was he removed to prevent him from finishing what he started? 80 years later, Patton is relevant again. As old rules collapse, we must ask, was he a psychopath or the last true warrior of the West? Does the modern world still need furious generals, or has the time of lone heroes passed, replaced by algorithms and drones? Write in the comments, Patton was right, or Patton went too far. Let's start this discussion. Your opinion makes history come alive. Thank you for walking through the smoke of Normandy with me. Subscribe for the next report from the other side of hell. See you on the front lines.
Thanks for watching until the end. I'm Mike. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more. See you in the next report.